Welcome back to the Scale Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. Today we're finally doing a video that I've been waiting to do for almost a whole year. Yes, we are talking today about the Loco Hauk, scale accurate recreation of Kenny Hauk's 6x6 JK steam powered Loco Hauk. This is a very cool build in full size. A lot of people have seen it at Easter Jeep Safari, and now a smaller version is in my workshop. I'm really excited to talk about this truck and to show off some of the features. Most importantly, I think what we need to get out of the way is that this thing in real life is steam powered. The guys at Hauk Designs went through all of the heavy lifting to find and source and create a truck that is, in all intents and purposes, it's basically out of the 19th century. It's so cool. It's a lot like steampunk, where you take something new and you make it look old or function old in some way. This truly is functioning in an old way. There are a few modifications that those guys made in order to make it a little more reliable. It's not powered by coal, of course, it's powered by diesel. So you've always got a reliable heat source to generate steam. That's one of the trade-offs that they had to make in order to make this a functional, usable piece of art that they could take to shows. A little bit of history about the Loco Hauk. I first saw this truck about a year ago, 2017, around spring, around Easter time, and when they first put it on display, I was like, I have to build you. This is something that I have to build. I have to know more about how this thing was made. So I did all the research I could. There wasn't a ton out there. There were a few Instagram posts, a few videos on YouTube. When I first saw it, it blew my mind. I knew it was something that had to be built, but I had to make sure I was faithful to the original and power it by steam. It's so out of the realm of what I'm familiar with, and it's definitely something that wasn't easy by any stretch. I'm sure in the full-size world it was massively hard. Anybody catch that? Anybody? Back to the show. In all seriousness, this thing is truly wild. It was an honor to speak to Kenny and get some reference photos and some insider knowledge of how this truck functioned, in order to have a better idea of how I was going to go about recreating it. I think a lot of people would have been satisfied just recreating the truck and making it look like its full-size counterpart, but I wanted to try to do something a little bit outside the box and really challenge myself and create something that was powered in the same way as the full-size truck. So yes, this little version is powered by steam. Not something that a lot of people have seen, but there was a pioneer in this hobby. You may have seen his stuff on the internet. He goes by the name Crab Foo, and I will put a link in the description below. He took the same steam engine I'm using in this unit and powered a Tamiya Night Hauler. His build was definitely a source of inspiration. A few disclaimers. Steam is a very powerful thing, and you do have to respect it, and you do have to be careful around it. This engine gets extremely hot. I had to take a lot of precautions to make sure I wasn't going to build something that was going to be dangerous. It's a very finicky power source, and you'll discover why it doesn't get used in mainstream manufacturing or automotive anymore. It's just not as reliable as what we've got available today. Certainly not as good as an old-fashioned 3S LiPo battery. Enough about that. Let's get the truck down off the shelf, take a good look at it. I'm going to run you through everything top to bottom. Okay, so here it is. This is the Hauk Designs Loco Hauk. I built it to about 9th scale because that's sort of my preferred building size. But for sheer comedy's sake, I had to take the original number 78 and make it 7.8, like it's 10th scale.
That's the joke. You suck, McBain!
Beyond that, it's a pretty faithful recreation. The full-size truck, obviously, started life as a Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. I started with a New Bright JK Unlimited, which is what that full-size truck would be. But it required some substantial modifying, of course. There's nothing left past the rear doors. It's all new from that point backward. I trimmed the fenders, of course, in the front and lost the stock front grille, and also had to do a substantial chop to the interior. I will get to that later on, but I did want to make sure that this still had an interior and showed off Kenny Hauk's artistic talent in that interior. Moving backwards, you can see that the back is sort of styled to look like a locomotive's boiler section, and this is actually faux, not, it's not real because it's styrene. And in fact, in the full-size truck, it's not real either. There's a smaller boiler inside the faux boiler that does the work of creating steam. They actually can lift the whole rear section off from these tabs, in fact. And that's sort of one of the ways in which they get into that area to fill it up with diesel fuel and water and any other lubricants that it may require. I did a whole new roof section as well out of styrene. I tried to use the original roof, but the tapering was weird in the way that they did the modifications to the body. This was really the only way to make it look as accurate as possible. There are a lot of rivets on this truck. All those rivets are real. They're from a place called Micro Fasteners in Easton, Pennsylvania, and they're 1/16 diameter, 1/4 inch length aluminum semi-tubular rivets, and hand pressed each and every one of them. I don't remember exactly how many there are, but I bet you there's close to 400 individual rivets, and that's a lot of riveting, if I'm honest. It was kind of a pain, but it was worth it. I wanted to make sure that I was faithful to the original, and there are as many rivets on this truck as there are on the real truck, so good for me, I guess. Also on this boiler section, there is some really cool small scale brass pipe. This is functional brass piping that would be used in model railroading or garden railroading. It's all faux on here, just like it is on the real truck, I'm sure. But I just wanted to make sure I was as faithful to the real truck as possible again. So there's a lot of detail put into that. On the rear section of the truck, there is a nice big sort of Hauk Designs cover plate for the boiler. In my truck, that actually comes off so I can monitor the steam pressure if necessary. I can also get in there and adjust the actual gas flow as well. We'll get into how the steam engine functions later, but it's nice to know that there's a door on the back there so I don't have to lift the whole body off in order to get at the steam engine in case of an emergency or in case I need to see what's going on in there. I added some extra chimney stacks. The real truck only has one, but I wanted to make sure that I got as much airflow through there as possible because the steam engine obviously gets hot. So there's a couple extra holes there to help relieve some of that heat and have it dissipate out the top. Primarily though, the center stack is for the blow-off valve on the steam engine. That's required so this thing doesn't blow up. You'll also notice that there is a 3D printed rear bumper. That was made by me. I designed that in Fusion 360, and it was one of my first projects that I've ever 3D printed before of my own, and I'm really quite happy with how it turned out. The taillights are also 3D printed. They're off a military truck and for the full-size vehicle, and I just wanted to make sure I had something that was as close to that as possible, so there wasn't anything off the shelf. Had to print it myself. The grille is from Knight Customs and it looks awesome. It's a faithful recreation of the full-size truck. The bumper is a close match. That's actually a Smitty built front bumper from James as well. And the tow hooks are from RC 4-wheel drive. They have big brass looking tow hooks on the real truck. I was like, these are perfect. They look almost exactly the same. You'll notice on the other side of the truck there is an actual whistle, and that's steam powered, of course, and just like the full size, Close to an accurate representation. The whistle is actually on the driver's side on the real truck. Just a sort of a space limitation. I had to put it on the passenger side. I don't think many people will notice. I just wanted to make sure there was a whistle on there. Very cool. Interior is partially from the JK. Only the front seats are included. The dash has been completely removed and recreated to closely match the original. I liked all the little steampunky details that the Hauk team added to theirs, and I wanted to make sure that I had all that stuff in mind. I painted it in a satin black, which is close to the original as well, just to kind of give it that sort of old school steampunk locomotive kind of vibe. And I think I kind of matched that pretty well. Wheels are KMCs from Vanquish Products. They're not close to the original. I couldn't find anything even remotely close, but they're black. They've got all the hardware from Locked Up RC, and I think they look fantastic. I also added some GCM locker wheel nuts just to kind of give it a bit more accuracy overall. This is on an extended SCX-10 chassis. I just took some existing extra rails I had, brazed on some more mounts, and basically made it a 6x6. Geometry is pretty good. It does articulate quite well for its size and weight. And yeah, I just wanted to, kind of show what's possible with off-the-shelf axial components. And to make sure it's Axial Fest legal, I needed to do it this way. So a couple of challenges there for sure. Steam engine, make sure it's all axial, 6x6, functional. So all that stuff kind of actually came together. Anyway, the Curry F9 axles underneath were a definite nice touch. The great thing about the F9 is that the rear is reversible, so you can make a 6x6 or an 8x8 or whatever you choose. Of course, the middle unit is plastic in order to have two of the input shafts working on it. That's the only way to make that happen. But for looks purposes, front and rear, Vanquish Curry F9s, they look awesome. Yeah, nothing special going on in the transmission or the transfer case, it's just in all the way it's laid out. I did want to get as much reduction as possible because if you know anything about miniature steam engines, they don't generate a lot of torque, especially on startup. Once they get going, they certainly are going quite well, and there's a lot of RPMs and everything works quite well. But at low speed, low startup, not a lot of torque. You have to make sure you have a lot of reduction in order to make this thing function. It's not super quick, it doesn't crawl very well, but it certainly moves under its own power, and that was the goal. Some of the beauty of this truck really comes from what's inside, and I did have to hide it to be accurate to the real truck. But you know what, let's take the body off and get a good idea of how mechanically this whole truck works. It's pretty hard not to notice this gorgeous steam engine unit. This is a handcrafted piece of wizardry from Regner Industries, and Regner is a German company. They've been producing model steam engines for a very long time. I think in the decades, I think they've been doing this. And this is sort of the culmination of most of their tech and most of their ingenuity all in one piece. This is the Regner Compact, as it's known. And what you see in front of you is an all-in-one unit. It comes ready to run and doesn't require much out of the box to make it work. On its own, the Regner unit is very reliable, very easy to use, and just a pleasure to run. It's really something pretty spectacular. To give you a sense of size, this boiler unit here in the middle will hold about 320 milliliters of water, and that will get you on a good day about 25 minutes of solid operation. It's entirely dependent on how much fuel you have on board to heat the boiler. So in the case of this unit, it's powered by butane. This is the gas unit here. And then directly behind that is your glass water level reader. And you always kind of want to have that sort of halfway at the very minimum. And of course it moves when you fill up the boiler with water. You fill up the boiler here. This here is the blow-off valve. If your pressure gets too high, this will automatically trip and release any excess pressure into the atmosphere. It's easy to read where your pressure is at with the included pressure gauge. It's measured in bar, and bar converts very nicely to PSI. This thing runs very efficiently at about 2.5 bar, which is around 35-40 PSI. So not much more than your standard bicycle tire. Steam routes through the boiler here at the bottom into this unit here, which is the oil reservoir. You want to have steam oil to lubricate all of your moving parts, and the moving parts in this case is a 2-piston, well, for lack of a better term, a 2-piston engine. The pistons turn this crankshaft and flywheel, which is mated to a wild bore drive shaft just off the shelf, which goes to a 12-tooth pinion to a stock spur through the GCM front transmission motor plate to a normal everyday axial transmission. That transmission goes out to a transfer case, and that transfer case powers all 6 wheels. Servo obviously up front for steering, and that's about it. There's another steam tube running out of the unit to power the steam whistle. That's literally all there is to it. It's not all that complicated when you look at it. Through my Spectrum DX5C, I'm able to control the whole thing. It's only using 3 channels, which is pretty spectacular considering how complex this thing is. Of course, you're saying to yourself, well, wait a second, it's powered by steam, but steam can't possibly be generating enough electricity to power all of these servos and to actually, like, make that work, right? Well, you're right, it doesn't. It does require a small 3S battery through a BEC to power all of the servos to make the rest of the truck work. Obviously, that would be crazy if there was enough power being generated by the steam engine to make the servos work. That's a whole other level. Don't even want to consider it. That's not a thing. But yeah, a fairly simple system that makes for a pretty cool truck. And there you have it, functioning, steam-powered 6x6 JK, the Loco Hauk. Thanks so much for watching. This has been super fun for me. It's been an entire year of my building life, and I couldn't have done it without the help of Knight Customs, GCM Racing, Vanquish Products, Axial Racing, Regner. Thank you so much, Spectrum, for providing me with the DX5C. It's an awesome radio. I definitely need to follow up on what I've learned about it over time, but it is definitely my go-to radio. Who else am I missing? Kenny Hauk, Hauk Designs. Kenny was great to work with. I appreciated getting his emails, and I appreciated his feedback on the truck. I do invite you to go check out the forum where I've got very detailed photos and a very detailed account of how this truck came together. It's really the more important part of the story than seeing it at the end, but the end result was pretty cool too. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. It means a lot to me, and I would love to hear your feedback. Please post comments below. If you've seen this truck in real life, tell me about it. If you want to see more of this truck, let me know. More than happy to share with you. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.